just talk through.
Okay.
And I'll try to see if I can get a PDF
Okay.
or something in there.
Obviously, it's important to have their name. Application number, I always put the site of where they're at, whether it's Overcomers, CPSK, and then give them a number beginning at 1 to whatever for that site. Address is not always as important because mail here is not, at least in Kenya, is not that reliable. The best way is the contact phone number. They don't have a phone number. Sometimes they have a relative's phone number, whatever, or somebody that they know. Date of birth, age, sex, height and weight, usually people don't know. Type of mobility requested is definitely whether it's a wheelchair, walker, crutches, cane. And then these 4 questions are extremely important because those, along with the measurement, will help you determine the kind of chair. Can you sit without support? Can you talk to us? Can you hold your head without support? And can you self-propel? And out of the measurements, I really only use number 2, top of shoulder to seat, number 5, actual sitting depth, 10, hip width, and 11 and 12 would be leg drop. Diagnosis is usually pretty important. What special requests and additional information, usually here is when I'll talk about if they have some severe contractures, maybe severe hamstring contractures or plantar flexion contractures, maybe if they're very windswept to one side or the other, scoliosis, rib hump, anything that you're not going to see or in a picture or measure as well, just so that it's written down here somewhere. Down at the bottom then is the type of wheelchair. That is going to be determined from your measurements, your diagnosis, and your additional information. And then it's good to put who's completing the form also because you never know who you have to go back and ask questions to. A lot of times you can have the therapists at the sites help you and or yourself or whomever on that. And then a photo. And for the measurements here, if you're having national therapists or different people help you, you can always refer down to the picture here. Number 2, it tells you the top of the shoulder down to the seat. Hip width, it shows you from where you need to have your measurements. Sitting depth is number 5, so it's going to be this arrow right here. And then leg drop, 11 and 12 are right here. So you can always have someone refer to the picture if they're not sure what these ones mean.
And what position do you want them in for the photo?
Usually I will have them sitting, facing forward. A lot of times they're sitting on the mom's laps or a relative's lap. Sometimes I'll also have them turn sideways if they have a really, maybe if they have a rib hump or something I want to capture, but definitely forward and in as upright as possible. And usually the first measurement I take is hip width. So when I'm doing hip width, I take, usually it's going to be the trochanter that's the widest, but not always. So I'll put a finger here over somewhere near the trochanter and lock it on 0. And then come over here and do the same thing. And what's important when you're measuring hip width is not to wrap the tape measure around them because you're going to be adding hip width, and not to put a finger here but hold the tape measure out here like that, which can be very common. Some people do this and they'll end up getting 17, but that's not where their fingers are.
Okay. And then show the best technique right there.
Usually I will lock a finger here with my thumb on 0. I'll lock a finger here. And I'll come over here and I just slide my fingers along until I get, and then I'm looking at the tape measure where my finger is ending. So Solomon's about 13 and a half. I'm going to come over here, then I'm going to do seat depth. I'll stick my finger again right behind the knee. And so I lock it, and again got my thumb right on 0, and I'm putting it right here. I'll slide my arm all the way along. Again, you don't want to wrap it around the leg. You want to hold it as straight as you can. and I'll come all the way to the back.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay. Okay, so I lock it right here, 0, and I'll just slide my thumb along until I get to the most posterior part. Some people, it's different bony prominences. Some people have a lot of hip extension, and I look. So he would be 21 and a half.
Great.
Same position for the right here behind the knee as I did for seat depth. So when I'm measuring leg drop, I hold it right here on 0, put my finger back behind the knee, bring it all the way down and measure. One thing you have to be careful of here is if someone has a really bad plantar flexion contracture, I'm going to measure all the way down to the lowest part. Not like this, but straight down to the tip of their toes.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay, I'm going to measure from the seat to the top of the shoulder. I put 0 down here on the bottom. I'm going up. Make sure that the person is sitting up as straight as they can. I'm just going to measure to the top of the shoulder. So you'd be about 20. Okay, so now if you go sit in a windswept. Okay. Now when people are very windswept like this, it's really easy to just go measure their hips, but that's not their total width, because when they're sitting, their actual width is from here to here. So when people are really windswept, for their hip width measurement, I might measure their hips, but at some point I'm going to note what their total width is. So I go from kind of just eye it down here. So I know that this is 17. He's probably going to need an 18-inch chair to accommodate his whole width here. See?
Hold on a second. I lost it there. Just back up in terms of what you were saying. I got that, but just go back in terms of the leg length discrepancy.
Oh. A lot of times when people are windswept, they also have a leg length discrepancy. And you want to write both of them. The sheet doesn't have a place for seat depth if someone has a leg length discrepancy. So I might make a note somewhere that this one is maybe only 17, but that this one over here is 20. So we know that we can't have more than 17. Either that or we're going to have to cut out the seat pan on one side. If I always look at their back at some point, I usually have them lean forward, and a lot of times I'll even lift up their shirt and just feel their spine, see if they have a rib hump, see if they're kyphotic. There have been many times where people look straight from the front, and when I lift their shirt up, they've got a 90-degree rib hump, and you don't even realize it, or 90-degree kyphosis. So anything that's out of the ordinary as far as kyphosis, scoliosis, rib hump, pelvic rotation, leg length discrepancy, plantar flexion contractures, hamstring contractures, those are the big ones. I make a note somewhere on there. A big thing I look at is to see whether they can sit by themselves, and these are the 4 yes/no questions. Can they sit by themselves, and can they hold their head up? If those answers are no, I automatically give them a tilt and space chair. If they cannot sit and they cannot hold their head up, they get a tilt and space. If they can hold their head up and they can sit somewhat unsupported or unsupported, I'll be more likely to go for a kid chair, or depending on their size, a quickie. The hardest part is determining what kind of chair that they need.
So if you had all the information, you could determine the chair.
Yeah, if I had a good photo of them and very accurate measurements and the additional information, such as any kind of deformities, it's a lot easier than to make the determination of the chair. I think a lot of people could. ROC chairs and kid chairs are very adjustable. Kid chairs come in 12-inch hip width, and seat depth, I forget what it is, it's maybe 12 or 14. And then the They come in 14 by 16 and 14 by 14, and that's it. That's the maximum. The maximum a ROC chair comes in is a 13 hip width with a maximum seat depth of 14, and the 15-inch hip width, the maximum seat depth is 18. So if someone is growing, and if I look and see that they're 11 or 13, right in that growing phase, and I know we're not going to be back for a year, I'll give them another inch or two seat depth, and that might change the kind of chair that I would pick for them, because you don't want to put a chair to maximum when they're right in the middle of growing.
So what would you recommend in terms of a time between the measurement, the greatest length of time between measurement and them actually receiving the chair?
Usually, maximum I've seen 1.5 years. That's a long time. Ideally, we like to keep it less than a year, 6 months to a year. So most kids are going to grow in that time. So when I pick the chair, I don't pick one that they're fitting maybe right there. According to their measurements, I pick a chair that I know will allow them to grow into them, if possible.